Let's roll them. Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Welcome to Anatomy of an Entrepreneur, where we always have fun. You know, one of the problems I have with this show is that I'll start talking and I'll watch Lori looking at Frank and Frank looking at Lori like, and I'm like going, they're talking, then I go get paranoid and I go like, oh, what are they? They're making fun of me already. They don't even say anything, but they're making fun of me.
We have our own language back here.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
We do. We have sign language and we have our own communication.
Well, so does Shelby and I.
Well,
but she's sleeping.
she's going to...
Anyway, let's do a little housekeeping on this show of ours because you're getting us way off track.
Oh, so sorry.
Tonight's show is brought to you by My Instant Office. If you need a desk, a chair, an office, by the week, the day, the month, come on in, sit down, and get to work. We always say just add yourself. And by the Huntington Chamber of Commerce. The Huntington Chamber of Commerce is the largest chamber of commerce on Long Island. Did you know that?
I had no idea.
Rob?
Interesting, Lord.
How many people say to you, are you a character in Harry Potter?
I get that, and I get very often, are you the Hagedorn that is the Miracle-Gro family? And I say, I wish I was, because I probably wouldn't be here. I'd be on some yacht by now.
Yeah, you wouldn't be in here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be living
That's the
in
name of the family that owns Miracle-Gro?
Yes, the Hagedorn family.
Interesting.
Yeah. I still need to figure out how to get connected to them so I can almost do kind of like Wedding Crashers and become part of the family. Be nice.
I actually get that with this guy. We'll go into this later.
Yep.
But anyway, also the Huntington Chamber of Commerce says it's the best darn chamber in the world. But let's get our show rolling because we have a lot to talk about with our friend Rob Hagedorn of the Miracle-Gro family. Rob, your family has been entrepreneurs in the gardening business for a very long time. How did that start?
I wish. I wish it was the same family. So I grew up in Northport in Long Island. My father's German. My mom's 100% Irish. She's one of 8 in an Irish Catholic family. So learned very quickly that you have to share. And if you don't share and learn, you get kind of pummeled away. So from my side, I grew up with a father that was in the Merchant Marine, so he'd be out to sea for 6 months at a time. He had a large
I had a neighbor who was
ship.
in the Merchant Marines.
Yeah.
On Eaton's Neck.
Yeah. So probably, I'm sure my father knows him. So my father was in the Merchant Marine for 30 years. Mom was a stay-at-home mom, so grew up with my mom and taking care of my brother and I, who was about 3 years older than us. So lots of chores, lots of clean up the house while Dad was away, and then Dad got to be the hero when he came home for 6 months.
Right.
He would give us ice cream, whatever we wanted, because he'd be making up for being gone for a couple of days.
And in true North Portian style, you moved back.
I did. I graduated in 1998, went to school down in Virginia, played lacrosse down at Roanoke College, loved it, never thought I'd come back to New York, and then somehow after backpacking, which we can talk about a little bit, because it's led to a lot of my stuff from a business perspective, I backpacked around Europe for 6 months.
Oh, I wish I would have known. I would have gotten pictures from you.
So long, curly hair, traveled Europe for about 6 months, and then lived in the Caribbean for about 4 years, which we'll get into in a little bit of teaching kids how to sail, and then found my way slowly back to Northport, and now live here with three little kids and a beautiful wife.
What kind of kid were you?
When I was younger, I was a troublemaker. So before I was I had 2 different kind of of years when I was a kid. Probably prior to 13, I was a troublemaker. I was the kid that would pick on people. I was a little bit obnoxious, a little bit of a bully, what people would probably say nowadays. And then I had a moment where I got suspended in 7th grade for punching a kid, and came home, and my father and mother talked to me, and really ever since then had a pivot in life of really
need a bouncer here.
really changed up my career and path.
Wait a minute. So you were like a bully kind of a kid until you were 13?
Well, from the age of 13, I thought I did, everything that I did I thought was fine. Right. I grew up with an older brother. We'd run around. I still always cared for people, but I had probably a little bit of a high energy level, as what they would say for young boys at age 13 and younger. And then I had, again, in middle school, I had a kind of moment where I could say, okay, do I want to continue down this path and be a-hole, or do I want to change it and be a good person and a good leader? And have that
what
change
was
going?
the light that at 13, light bulbs don't usually
No.
go on.
It's true.
And I had a similar experience with smoking. When I turned 14, I started smoking when I was 12.
Yep.
And at 14, I began to inhale, and I went, uh-oh, this is scary. Somehow something clicked in me where I threw the cigarettes away.
Yep.
What was the epiphany that you had
Yep.
that you went from being an a-hole, as
Yeah,
you say,
yeah.
to a good kid?
Tough mom. My mom's Irish Catholic, and she always taught us like family and caring for others is more important than anything else in the world. So, again, I don't think it was a light bulb. I think it was just a change of perception of I wanted to be well liked in school. I wanted to move up and be captain in different sporting events. And people don't like a-holes, right? I mean, I think you learn that as you go into high school and college and definitely the business world. We have in my business now no a-hole rule. So if you're an a-hole, you can't work at our company.
Right. Yeah, I like that rule.
Yeah. And it's a simple rule, right? People kind of know what an a-hole is.
Unfortunately, I have worked with a lot of clients where actually I have this one client, actually we spoke about them earlier, that they had the idiot department. Yeah. And there were so many idiots in the company, they were going to put them all in the idiot department. Yep. So I get that with the no a-hole rule. So you started to change your tune. Do you think part of it was maybe because your dad was away so much? I mean, I hate to be therapist
No, but potentially. I mean, he was gone for anywhere from 3 months to 6 months at a time. And we grew up with my mom a lot, and my father wasn't around often. But whenever he was around, he'd be there for every single sporting event, everything, because he'd be home not working for basically 3 to 6 months at a time. I think it was also, I never like to put blame on things, but I also think it was a little bit of I had a learning disability when I was younger where I had a hard time understanding verbal language.
Right.
So I actually got held back in second grade twice. I tell people I couldn't do the
Were you
building blocks.
ADD?
But back then it was probably ADD, ADH. I forget the exact term right now, but it basically was an audiology symptom where I had issues, and I still do, in terms of it's very difficult for me to learn languages because it's verbal. So for me, it's very much about learning how to write, how to listen. Like, it's why I love podcasts nowadays, so I can listen and kind of think about things versus trying to learn them just the typical in the classroom waiting for a teacher to help educate you.
Did you know you wanted to go to college?
Yeah. Knew I wanted to go to school at a young age. Knew I wanted to do stuff in sports. I've always been a person that loves people. Ever since I've been a little kid, I've always known I've enjoyed being around people. But from my perspective, I knew college was important because of where I wanted to be in life.
Did you have a lot of drive?
I would like to, I personally believe no, but I think when I look back on it, I think I was very driven. At the time, I didn't think about it.
And were you persistent? Like,
yes.
Were you the kind of person that did not give up?
Yes. To the point that it annoyed the hell out of people.
Really?
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the reasons why you're successful today. That is a double-edged sword.
Yes.
That persistence.
Yes.
Because I nudge Lori Kay. But it's also a big strength I have, is nudging.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Well, I like to say you want to be set up for success.
Right.
You want to build your path. You want to build your journey.
Yeah.
And you need control of that. But the one thing is, you get older and you learn that you need the best rock star teammates to build it with you.
You said you played lacrosse and you played it in high school.
Yeah.
And you played it in college.
Yep.
Was it something you were passionate about?
I enjoyed it as a sport. It probably kept me out of trouble when I was younger. It helped me get really good grades in school and college because I had a dedicated schedule. Right. I had to get up in the morning. I'd go to the gym from 6 to 7:30 in the morning. I'd have class. And then I had practice from 3 to 5:30 versus my friends that weren't playing sports. In college, it's the best. You could go to class for 2 hours and just have 12 hours and have no clue what to do with it.
Yeah.
So I think sports is one of those things for no matter what type of student you are, if you can do sports, it can at least give you the regimen both in school and when you graduate to understand how important it is to have a schedule.
Would you say that it gave you structure?
Yeah.
And then everything else around it, it was like the lacrosse itself was a structure that you had to adhere to, and then the rest of your life had to have structure in order you to keep playing lacrosse.
Yep.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to play lacrosse anymore.
100%. Well, and that and mentorship, and also gave you got to see the different ways to be a leader from the coaches.
Right.
Good and bad.
Right.
So very early on when you play sports, you get to see what type of people and how they coach people.
Did you have any clue what you wanted to do after you got out of college?
No.
And did that frighten you at all?
Not really, because I've always been a little bit of a free spirit. I've always been as my wife says, just kind of a theologist of love and just trying to figure out what life brings. But I also, listen, I was in college. I was a political science. I thought I wanted to be an environmental lawyer. I interned in the EPA, didn't like it. And then I became a caddy at a really prestigious golf club in Long Island. And again, that was another great moment in my time where it taught me customer service. It taught me very early on.
What do you mean? Describe that.
So when you become a caddy, you have to listen often, right? You don't talk too much. You listen to the conversations that both male and females have that a lot of them are really successful. So I learned very early on to listen very often and understand the better customer service I provided to them, right? How I smiled, how I greeted them, how I listened to them, how I just made them feel. They would either give me a higher tip or a lower tip. So that was my aha moment to be like, wow, customer service, i.e. Disney, what a phenomenal power it is if you can learn it the right way.
As a caddy, though, aren't you supposed to also make recommendations?
Mm-hmm.
Did you?
I did when they wanted to, right? So there's some golf members that wanted you to carry their bag and not talk. So you had to listen to them and not be a loudmouth caddy trying to tell them what to do. Others would be very patient and willing and, hey, what's the yardage? Read me the cream. But again, like you and Laura were just going back and forth before about body language. When you can start to understand body language and how to use that for the better, it's a pretty powerful weapon you have. So in caddying, you start to learn if someone's happy, if they're upset, if they want you to leave them alone, if they want help. So I caddied for multiple years, and two things came out of that is one, the customer service perspective,
right,
and two, how to build relationships and network.
So I'm going to skip ahead only for a second, and then I want to go back. Would you say that one of the reasons, the place you're in today is a culmination of everything else you've done?
Yes, with a focus on when I went after college, I taught sailing for 4 years in the Caribbean that I thought at the time was a pointless job, right? It wouldn't get me anywhere. And what I learned from them and the relationships it's led to led me to a lot of my success.
Which is interesting because I believe that we crossed paths during that time. Because I did work for your boss at this company, Sail Caribbean.
Yep.
And
he's still there.
And that was in 1999, 2000.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say 1999, 2000. Were you there around then?
I was there 2002 to 2006, but I'm sure. I mean, some of it probably may have overlapped because he's still right here in Northport too. So
yeah. So you got out of college, you had no idea what to do. I was exactly the same way.
Yeah.
I studied Russian in college, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So you get out, and did you become a cat? You didn't become a caddy after college.
No, caddy. I started my sophomore year. Every summer I came home after college and caddy.
Okay,
so I started my sophomore year in
now
college.
You leave college.
Yep.
And you go traveling?
So I caddied that last summer, made some extra cash, and then that September of 2002, I took a one-way flight by myself and a Frommer's. Again, this was before mobile devices.
Before Frommer's, that was the book.
Right, the Frommer's, the book, and 1,000 travel places, and literally read for a couple of weeks and highlighted where I wanted to go. Met up with a friend who was living in London, and then I spent multiple months over there just literally getting up every day and be like, where do I want to explore? Which we'll talk about, I think, being an explorer from a personality.
We'll talk about it.
So there's two different perceptions, right? There's people who can stand on the sidelines and watch things as they go by. And then there's the explorers. And the explorers is what I could call is like your 10% of your workforce. They're the people who are the rock stars, the people who want to get ahead in life, and people who are curious. If you're always curious, you'll be able to kind of find new things. And when I was backpacking, it led me to be so curious about what was that next stop by the train station? What if I go speak to that person? Again, I didn't speak any language except English, and I had a Frommer's book and a train ticket to travel around Europe. But it led me to so many great things.
You really do take all of your experiences and leverage those experiences towards the next stop.
Yeah.
It's very, I mean, we have only been talking for 10 minutes, and it's very apparent that you take all these and you leverage them for the next place you're going to go, as well as you store them.
Yep.
Right, so you put them in a little safe, and then you take them all out, those tools out whenever you need them.
Yeah. I mean, listen, life. A gentleman a couple of years ago told me, he was really successful in the sports and entertainment industry. He said, "Listen, you have to remember, you're your own brand. So no matter where you go work, they're a brand. You know, they all have ups and downs, but you only have one brand, which is who you are. So you have to start building your brand as a young person, and that's going to follow you forever. So you always have to think about that for anybody out there." you have to create your own brand early on and make sure that you double down and believe very strongly of who you're going to become, because if not, people are going to see through it right away. But if you have a really strong brand, you will be successful in whatever you do. If it's carpentry, if it's plumbing, if it's politics. Because if you have a strong brand, people will believe in that brand and they will help you get far places.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Would that person's name be Fred?
No. Who was the gentleman? I'm drawing a blank, but he was high up at Budweiser for many, many years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep. Really successful guy, down to earth. And he came in and talked to all of us. Said, listen, remember, any business you're in is relationship driven. So build good relationships early on.
3-part question.
Yeah.
What did you love most about the sailing job at Sail Caribbean? What didn't you like about it? And what was your biggest takeaway from it that you were able to use as a tool when you moved on?
Yeah, good questions. What did I love the most about it? I believe yes, it's the camaraderie. So camaraderie both with the kids. So we were teaching kids ages 13, 18, who many of them had been holed up at boarding schools and pampered their whole lives. And we took them out into the middle of the ocean and taught them sailing. And they did everything. They cooked, they cleaned, they washed. But it was all about motivating and inspiring the kids and getting them to communicate. And then the relationships and camaraderie I built with the other sailing instructors, who are all now, very interestingly, all very, very successful in different careers, right? So they all took college, post-college took some time away, but have ended up being really successful from the things that they learned. So before I get into what I didn't like about it, what I took away from it was the importance of communication, the importance of clear communication and clarity, and doing things that you love.
But you had already learned that in lacrosse, because that's a team sport.
Yeah, it just reinforced again for me, because again, when you play team sports, you're with a lot of your friends most of the time, or you're with your teammates. This was the first time again, traveling in the British Virgin Islands. You're meeting people you've never met before. You're teaching kids for 3 weeks that come from all over the world. And again, you use a lot of those same tools as your toolkit to build what's next. And the part that I didn't like about it, I wouldn't even say I wouldn't like about it, is just at times the looks that kids would perceive as we're going to these third world countries. And even at these young ages, they would think they're better than the people in the islands. And I love, for me,
it's where they grew up.
The British Virgin Islands and the Caribbean, for me, is the ultimate equalizer, because you could be sitting next to a bar at Richard Branson and sit next to somebody who's the poorest person, and they both treat each other exactly the same. Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunate. Like, I wish for my young kids they grew up in a culture right now where money did not dictate how you treat people.
Unfortunately, that's a society we live in here.
Yeah.
In other places, it's not so much like that. And I believe in some ways there's a better lifestyle in other places. Oh. I mean, to me, this is the best country to live in the whole world. Yep. But there's a certain price we have to pay in this society. Yep. I kind of agree with you there.
Yeah.
When did you know it was time to leave Sail Caribbean?
So I was there for 4 years. For me, I wanted to move into the city. I wanted to live with a couple of friends that I grew up with in the city. I had this itch to get into the sports and entertainment world, but had no clue what it meant, right? I just saw magazines. I listened to podcasts. I was like, I want to get into sports and entertainment. Golf,
I could do that.
Tennis, I can do that, right? It's network and it's communication, it's throwing parties. So I worked during the summer until August 1st, took a month off, lived at home, and just enjoyed life, spent a lot of quality time with my mom and dad and my brother, and then hit the road hard with the resume. And again, at the time, I wasn't very confident in myself, because my resume said, I caddied, I worked at a Sail Caribbean company for 4 years, managing the marketing and sales. But I got in the door in a couple different places, almost took a job at Rolex managing some of their global events properties.
From a small company like Sail Caribbean?
Yeah.
You got offered a job with Rolex?
Well, I offered the opportunity, and I didn't end up getting the job offer. But what was super helpful at the time is I said, I'm going to call that person back and find out why I didn't get it, but not in a hostile way, but like, what can I do better? So I called the woman who I interviewed with and said, hey, can I grab 10 minutes with you? And she said, you know what? Keep in touch, because you're the first person that's ever done that, and it's not about hostile, like, why didn't you hire me? It's more about like, what can I learn from it, and what can you tell me that I can get better in?
Have you always been like that?
Yeah, I believe that you should always be learning.
Are you good at taking, I don't like this word very much, are you good at taking criticism?
Yeah, I believe brutally honest feedback is the only true thing that builds culture. So if you have a company that everybody's great and everything's well, I say two things. One, culture is what people say behind your back when you're not looking as a company. And two, from a culture perspective, it's much more important to think about how you're building the team and how do they feel, and are they open to giving honest feedback?
Yeah, it's
both in good and
hard.
bad?
It's very hard. And I can tell you from experience, from running a company for 25 years, I really wanted honest feedback from my employees.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Too afraid.
they were afraid,
Yep.
and they felt like they had to kiss my butt.
100%.
And it was like, don't tell me how wonderful my idea is.
Yeah.
Tell me why you don't like my
Yeah.
idea. Break what I want
Yep.
to do. And I felt that was a problem
Yeah,
because I really wanted to know the truth.
sure.
It doesn't matter how much they liked me and how much we got along. I was still the boss.
Yep.
And so it was very difficult for them.
Yeah.
How do you build that into a culture that people don't have to fear ramifications if they give their true and honest feelings to whoever it is up the food
Yeah,
chain?
yeah. I mean,
That's a how. That's a question.
Yeah, you have to be truthful, and you have to build it from the start, right? It's you have to show your employees that you care about them. You have to just not come in all of a sudden hot and heavy and say, hey, give me feedback, right? It's like, hey, listen, I honestly, truly care. Like, what can I be doing better? So things that I do is I do snapshot sessions with a lot of my leaders on my team. So we do 15-minute snapshots where I can learn about what's going on.
Leaders, people that work for you?
Yeah, so directors, senior directors in my business that manage clients such as Coca-Cola, CVS, REI, Bermuda Tourism. So I'm in the client service business, right? So we get hired by clients to help them market new products, help them market their brand. And the best way to build the right type of culture, but also honest feedback, is giving it often and saying, hey, listen, what we're about to talk about right now is brutally honest feedback. It's not in a harmful way, it's just for us to learn. Because if you can build a culture, and there's a woman named Claude Silver that's called the Chief Heart Officer at VaynerMedia Group, that has done a really good job showcasing that if you're not given feedback all the time as both a leader and as a teammate, you're not really being a great teammate or a leader. You're basically not giving those people the long-term ability to be successful because they're not learning as they grow. All of us, right? The hardest part about being a leader is not getting that feedback, and then 3 or 4 years down the line, you're kind of disappearing and not longer being liked.
Do you think Gary Vaynerchuk really eats what he makes?
I don't know. What I do know is that he's latched on to a trend that is going super fast right now. And people are believing him, and I think younger people are no longer being inspired by typical presidents and CEOs of companies. They're being inspired by influencers and people who are speaking their voice.
Right.
You know, and truth matters right now to kids ages 13 to 30.
So let's talk about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah.
So you went in, you got a job in sports and entertainment.
Yeah, so 2006, I, again, was doing interviews and got a phone call from somebody who said, hey, you should reach out to this other gentleman who's a partner at our firm right now, this gentleman named JG. So I reached out to him and sent him my resume. And of course, he went on Sail Caribbean as a kid, which I had on my resume, right? So again, it all comes back. You think of Sail Caribbean, you're teaching summer camps, not going to help you get a job. It got me in the door at a company called Lead Dog Marketing Group at the time, which was about a 15-person sports and entertainment agency.
What does Lead Dog do?
Yeah, so Lead Dog, at the end of the day, is a global integrated marketing agency.
I don't understand that.
So we help brands tell stories
Okay.
at a simple perspective,
And what does that do for them?
and that helps them drive either revenue, bottom line sales. So if it's Coca-Cola, right, helps them sell more Diet Coke, helps them sell more vitamin water, and other things such as Susan G. Komen, where we help produce and run their run walks. That helps them raise more money. That obviously helps benefit people who are.
But I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but it's not about a direct sale.
Yep.
It's about building a brand, of building credibility and loyalty. Am I correct?
Yes, in terms of brand, building the brand equity. The thing is, we have multiple different divisions. Some of our division focuses on PR, right? So how do we get the story out there about a brand? So if it's Drone Racing League came out multiple years ago, if anybody's familiar with it, right? Crazy people flying drones, and it's on ESPN now. So we got hired early on to do the PR around it. So how do you get people to know what Drone Racing League is at the time? No one knew a clue. So our whole focus was get in PR and get the stories out there. Getting back to the cause space, right? So Susan G. Komen or Memorial Sloan Kettering Center
Yes.
hires us to produce and bring to life their experiences. So Psycho vs. Survival, if people are aware of it, we help produce it on the back end. So as a customer, when they show up, they have a streamlined experience. They love it. And then hopefully they continue to donate. That helps raise multiple millions of dollars for that charity.
What happens to a business like the one you're in during a recession?
Yeah.
Because the first thing that gets cut is marketing.
Yeah. We saw it. So
what do you do?
2007, 2009, we saw it at our company, right? So we had to take furlough days. So instead of firing a bunch of people, our CEO is super smart and cared a lot about his people. So we did furlough days. So people would take off a Monday or Friday. You get paid 4 days a week. You try to innovate, right? So at the time, we were primarily an event division. So we got hired to produce live experiences. So we said, okay, let's open up a digital division. Let's open up a brand promotions division. So things that had smaller dollar investments, but would help us get through that recession timeframe.
Sometimes furlough days in some cultures don't work.
Yeah.
In some cultures, like the one you described, it does work. But in other cultures, you just get bitter employees.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were lucky. We were still a 20, 30 person company during the recession. We were growing really, really fast at the time. We were growing probably 50 to 150% a year. From a revenue side, we went from 20 people, 30 people, 60 people. But what we did a really good job of from executive size, even during the recession, we kept our rock stars together. So when we came out of the recession, we skyrocketed. We blew up because we had our core team still together.
And you kept on promoting yourselves.
Yes. Never stopped.
Where was your impact in the business at that time?
Yeah. So at the time, I was one of probably senior manager, director, overseeing accounts such as ABC, NHL, New York Rangers. So I was helping to oversee programs that we were doing. And then I was responsible, which is now kind of my niche, is responsible for renewing that business, which comes down to building trust with the client, right? Having conversations with the client, making sure that the team delivers the work that we're hired for.
Yeah.
And then building enough trust that when we finish the program, someone calls me up and says, hey, Rob, loved it. Let's talk about next.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's interesting that you say that because really it always comes down to relationships.
Yeah.
And the fact that you kept on developing a relationship gives you that trust and credibility, which breeds loyalty from a client.
Yep. Listen, if you don't have I don't care what business you're in. If you don't have trust and you screw up once, you're fired. If you screw up but you have trust, you're given another second opportunity.
Yeah.
But so many people forget that business. They try to be most creative shop. They try to be this and that, and they lose track of caring. And if you don't care, then people always remember how you made them feel. People never care so much about what you did for them sometimes, but they're always going to remember how you made them feel. So if you can make them feel awesome all the time, they're always going to want to do business with you, no matter where you end up in life.
How did you manage to move up the food chain at Lead Dog?
Yeah.
Like, because I want to speak for like younger people who may be watching this at some point, whether live or on demand. How did you move up the food chain?
Yeah. Listen, hard work, right? Like I'd show up early and leave late and make sure that things were going well. But I built relationships. And I started building trust internally with our executive team, right? So I'd learn, I'd ask them questions. I'd want to know what's going on. I went and attended a lot of conferences, and again, always from a curious mindset to learn. And my secret sauce is that I started focusing on driving revenue. So a lot of people in my position in, let's call it 2010, 2011, focused on just producing the work and loving producing the work. I started playing this dual path of not only producing the work, but then renewing the work or finding new business through other relationships that I created.
So you became strategic.
Yeah. Strategic, yeah. Yep.
Right. So you were an executor.
Yep.
But then you started transitioning to strategic.
Yep.
How much of your work now is execution? How much of your work now is strategic?
Yeah. It varies day to day. But in a perfect world, it's probably a 30% kind of execution and the other part mainly strategic, right? So now I'm responsible from my side of not only a pretty large book of business at our company to make sure that our clients renew and grow and we're doing amazing work for them, which knock on wood has continued to happen for multiple years. But then two, which we'll get into, is Lead Dog got acquired a couple of years ago from another holding agency that is a global 1,000-person plus sports entertainment agency globally. So now we're morphed into them and saying, okay, how do we build North America? They bought up all these different agencies, different services, different people. So my responsibility is to figure out how do we meld them and then how do we maximize growth?
So you got bought out by this conglomerate,
Yep.
right? Like they like an Omnicom or
Similar. They're a little
Publicis
they're a
or-
little smaller,
Right.
but it's an amazing
But
work that owns basically two different divisions. There's a sports and entertainment division called CSM,
Right.
and then there's a media division called VCCP. That is your typical traditional advertising,
Right.
developing things that you see all the time.
Part of the reason why Lead Dog became so successful is because you were small, you were nimble,
Yep.
it was easy to develop relationships, and you could really like spike in and dig in.
Yeah.
Now you're bought by this conglomerate,
Yep.
and they have their own culture and their own ways of doing stuff.
Yeah.
Are you able to maintain that personal, smaller shop feeling, personal touch, even though you're owned by this gigantic conglomerate? Because that is not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, listen, when you get acquired up, things change on the administrative part and the management part, right? So luckily, a lot of our key executives stayed on board. A lot of our clients stayed on board. When you're small, right, you can dump a bunch of your money back into your business for growth, right? You can hire more people. You can give people bigger salaries, bigger bonuses. When you get acquired by, I don't care what industry you're in, by a larger group, they start to make sure that they can get their investment back, right? So there's the part of, okay, how do I now maximize growth and revenue for that company? But what I always say is, no matter what size, if you teach people the right thing, from coordinators to managers to directors to vice presidents, you can always be in the same amazing company, even if you have a bigger brother watching over you. But what happens sometimes is people forget to teach, and they get so focused on growth or revenue. And if you don't teach often enough, you will slowly lose that special sauce that smaller companies have.
Are they a public company?
No.
They're not.
Yeah.
They're a private company.
Yeah.
There still must be this feeling of stress when you're working for a much larger company, because now you're not responsible just to your own management team.
Of course.
Now you're responsible to this much bigger engine.
Yeah.
There must be more stress in that.
For me, I don't look at it. I get excited actually about it.
Why?
Why? Because now I have a whole new, again, I'm getting back to curious. I have a whole new depth of people to learn from. I have amazing senior leadership that are from South America, Britain, China, Japan, people who've been really successful in selling sponsorship rights to hundreds of $1 million deals. So for me, it's less of stress. And the stress is more of, okay, how can I connect the dots to grow our business faster and more efficient? That's the stress of, am I doing enough each day, each week to do this? Because I put a lot of effort on myself to do that. But for me, it's the excitement of now, hey, we grew this amazing company. So how do we take it to the next level and be twice the size?
Do you get to communicate with all these folks from around the world?
If I want to, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty nice platform called Teams, which is a software platform that you can basically email, anybody that
Slack?
you want. Yep, similar to Slack.
Right.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So were you like promoted when this whole thing happened?
Not really. I mean, so once we got acquired, everybody kind of stayed in their lanes for the first 6 months, and then they started to reorg, right? So we were originally Lead Dog. Another company in Indianapolis was their name, and we were all supposed to stay our individual names for a little while, but then they started saying, okay, we need one global company under one name. So logos change, job titles change. So I've gotten promoted over the years in terms of more responsibility, obviously a nicer, different salary, but each year you get a different bonus, but I have to deliver on those things. And what the most stressful part, I'd actually say, thinking back of what we're just talking about, is making people believe that you're doing right by them. So when I'm from New York and I'm meeting people from other offices globally, sometimes they'll feel like I'm trying to come in and tell them how to do their business, which is not. I'm actually trying to say, hey, let me learn from you. Let me understand how your business works, so then I can connect the dots
That's
to other
relationship
businesses.
building too.
Yeah, yep. And you have to. It's if you go in there with guns on fire,
Yeah.
no one's going to build the relationships.
I mean, when you're in a company like you're in, you get to go do some really cool stuff,
Yeah.
and cool events.
Yep.
Tell us about some of like the really cool stuff
Yeah,
you've done.
yep.
Like, have you been on the top of Kilimanjaro while they're skateboards going down and they turn into snowboards?
That would be nice. I like that one. That's going to be the next one I do.
Okay.
So I've shut down Times Square and had NASCAR drivers do burnouts
Oh,
in the
that's
center
cool.
of Times Square on Good Morning America, which is
Like a
pretty
skid
fun.
pad.
Yep, skin pad. We
By the way, we had on a Guinness Book World Record holder for the longest drift on this show.
nice. Well, that's impressive.
232 miles.
200. Wow. I wonder how you measure that.
He was going on a skid pad for 232 miles.
That's impressive.
Yeah, 8 hours, catheter. Go ahead.
Okay. We brought the MLB London games to life this year. So we brought the Yankees to Red Sox to London. So we're the
Oh,
official
yeah. How was
promoter for
that?
Amazing, right? I mean, it's
And do you get to go to these things?
if I want to. I mean, I have 3 little kids at home now. So again, I try not to travel as much as I used to. But when I was younger, I think there was one year I went to Las Vegas 27 times for meetings and site visits and events. Florida, San Francisco.
You travel a lot.
But one of the coolest things I've done is one of my biggest passions is sailing. And I was able to bring the America's Cup World Series to the city of New York for the first time in 100 years. So I was the face of the brand with the city, the police.
That's
to get
so
everything
freaking
fine.
cool.
Yeah. So we took over the Hudson River for multiple days and literally had the best sailors in the world at one of the most premier sailing events, really anywhere.
Was Branson there?
I don't know if Branson was there. There were definitely a lot of famous people, a lot of rich-looking.
Do you get to hobnob with famous people?
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, you know what's funny? Our CEO embedded to me when I was young, you're there to do a job. You're there not to get people's autographs and ask for things. So I've never been the person, even in my 15 plus years of being here, to ever go up and ask for an autograph, meet with somebody. You know, I definitely go up and more talk to them just to learn about what they're doing. But there's people in the business who do that a lot. I've learned that you're being paid by the client to do something specifically. You're not there being paid by the client to schmooze.
You're also a liaison between your company and the client.
Yep.
And when you're at an event, things don't always turn out like you plan.
Yeah, shit hits the storm.
How do you handle that when it's such high profile and the money has got to be in the millions?
Yep.
How do you handle that? That, to me, that's stressful.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the job itself is very stressful, right? I mean, I don't know if the camera, I have lots of gray hairs over the years. And
Frank, can we zoom in on the gray hair?
yeah, zoom in on the gray guy right there. Lots of different gray hairs. So from my perspective, I tell my teammates this often. You can be, can I curse on the show?
Yeah, you can say shit.
Okay. So you could be shit and bricks.
Can you say shit, Lori?
You can say shit.
All right, good. So you
Can
can
you say any other curse?
You can say whatever you want.
Okay,
right.
Rob, I interrupted
all
you
right.
again. I'm sorry.
So you could be shit and bricks on site.
Yeah.
But from the outside, you have to look calm. So you have to always calm, because if your client sees you shit and bricks, they're going to shit bricks.
Never
And
let 'em
then
see you sweat.
Never let them see you sweat. So for me, staying calm, deep breaths, and at the same time, we're not saving the world, right? There's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now that is a lot scarier and stuff going on.
That is for sure.
Right? I mean, there's literally kids in America that can't get enough food to eat. So we're putting on $1 million event and Brandon. So if something doesn't go right in signage or programming, we may get fired. We may get yelled at. I may be super stressed. But when you reflect on it in 10 years, it's going to be a blip in time. And I remind people that, like, majority
what's
of
going
people
on
who
now
work.
will be a blip in time.
Yeah. Yep. So it's for me, it's much more important to focus on doing good work and having fun with people and not focusing on the past.
You know, there are similarities to what you do and live streaming because we have to make these split-second decisions. There's no going back with what we do.
Yeah.
And there are times where we make a really good decision. Yep, glad we did that. And there are other times where, oh boy,
Yep.
that was a big mistake. But in live streaming, you just have to live with the decisions you make.
Yeah.
Like you're doing something, it's deadline intensive. It's going on over a weekend. You can't get that time back.
No.
This is the same way.
Yep. And the clients want everything now.
And the clients are, and it better be perfect.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with, I know because I've worked with lots of Fortune 500s, they expect perfection at that level.
Of course. The agency life is the most difficult thing because you're the middleman. You're being paid to produce the work. And then you have to rely on other people to produce the work at some times.
Which means you have to have a very level head and stay very calm, even if you lose one of the engines and you're still at 30,000 feet.
Yep.
How do you maintain composure?
I mean, I remind myself, just like we were talking about before, of not saving the world, not saving someone's life, right? Like we're just in the marketing industry or we're in the promotions industry.
But do you ever get concerned that you could lose your job over something?
Yeah, but again, this is the philosophist of me of, my wife and I was talking about, like, so what's the worst case scenario? I get fired, I lose my job, I have 3 kids. I can do anything. Like when I came home from college, I became a UPS driver during the holiday because I just wanted to make some extra money. Like there's not many hustlers out there. So I believe if, I have enough confidence in myself that I can side hustle anything and to get by. And what's the worst case scenario? My wife and I have to sell our house and move back in with her parents or my parents. Cool. So everybody from the outside's gonna be like, oh, can't believe Rob lost his job. Can't believe he's with his parents. When you reflect on it, when you're looking down in heaven, is it really gonna matter?
It's not like living in Crimea.
Your kids are getting food, you're eating, you're drinking, like you're good. But society tells you need a job, you need to make money, you need to drive a fancy car, blah, blah, blah.
So you ignore that.
Oh yeah, I don't care about that stuff. It really doesn't matter.
You can say rat's ass if you want.
It just doesn't. People in the society put on this effect that you've got to do that, especially in New York, right? You got to make an amount of money. You need to be promoted. You need to do this. You need to have an apartment.
Yeah.
None of that matters. And I wish young people could understand that it's much more important. Yeah, it's hard.
It's
because
hard.
Society teaches you and your parents. This is a good one. So when I was backpacking in Australia, a guy was saying, you know what's the problem with you Americans are? And I said, no, go ahead, go tell me. He's like, all your parents ask you what you want to do, right? You want to become a doctor, you want to become a lawyer, you want to become a financial advisor. People in Australia ask their kids who they want to be. See the difference?
Yes. I know exactly what you're saying there.
Yep.
Right.
So imagine all of us ask our
it's
kids,
about
who do you
the
want to be?
person, not about what you do
Correct.
or who you're trying to impress or what you have.
Yeah.
And I can't agree with that more.
Yeah.
As I get older, you realize the things that you've taken for granted that will always be there, nothing's there forever.
No.
And as you get older, as you start to lose things, you start to realize what's important. When you lose your parents, you lose friends, or friends or family get sick, you start to realize that it really just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that's what you use to get through a stressful situation. Like, well, am I saving the world from nuclear holocaust?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Yep.
Because the way I look at it is when people get stressed, I go, is it cancer?
Yeah.
And they go, no. I go, well, then we're good.
You have to remind yourself that often. I mean, it's the double-edged sword of you wish you weren't in an industry that you have to remind yourself of those things sometimes, but
And your industry specifically is like that.
yeah. It's
And
cutthroat.
people will throw you under the bus, because I've worked with some of these large organizations on behalf of the clients I worked with. They will throw you under the bus in a heartbeat.
Yep.
Which means you have to have your antennas up all the
Yeah.
time too, though.
Yeah, you have to be listening. You have to be touching, feeling. I say often you need to be meeting with your client at least once a month face to face, right, to understand where they are. I just had a phone call before I came here with one of the most important clients I have that I brought into the business ourselves. That's been a multi-million-dollar program. And, I always end calls, listen, like, what else can we be doing for you? Or what are we not delivering for you that you want to tell us? Again, feedback. And a lot of people get fired having no idea that's coming. If I get fired, I just want, from a client, I at least want to know that it's coming and also almost agree with them. You're like, hey, you're right. We're not doing a good enough job. You should fire us.
Right.
Can you imagine, imagine more people doing that? Like, yeah, we
You'd
suck.
have less firings.
Yeah. You'd say, hey, we suck right now. Let's learn. Let's get better. And the client would be like, yeah, you're right. Instead of firing you, let me figure out how to work with you versus them just being like, yeah, you're not doing a good enough job. You're not talking to me. You're fired. And then they have to create a whole nother process of RFPs and find a new agency and all that stuff.
Where do you want to go with your career?
So for me, it's, and again, my father, from being the merchant marine for a long time and just his beliefs about just doing good work. Right? Like I want to touch as many people as possible and leave a positive impact for them. And for me, when I think about my next career and my path, it's getting back to what's deep ingrained in me of teaching, right? So teaching people, teaching kids, making people smile, building a business. There's nothing better than building a business. There's not, endorphins, winning national championships and lacrosse teams and whatever team, like that's exciting. But when you build a business, because you go through such a firestorm, right? There's ups, there's lows, there's pivots, there's adjustments. But, and if you build something that you actually care about, that's the fun part. So for me, I've been super blessed that I got to lead Dr. 2006 when it was a super small company. I learned a ton. I helped grow a really successful company that sold for lots of money to another company. And I learned.
I hope you got options.
What's up?
I hope you got options.
Yeah, I did. I luckily did get some options. Yeah. So that's hopefully pay for one semester of kids' college by the time they go to school. But it's about figuring out what are the things that I want to do next. And for me, it's about building businesses with great people. Because if you revolve yourself around great people, you can build anything. You could be going down, hey, we're going to do a skateboard. 6 months later, you pivot, and all of a sudden you build Instagram. But if you're a group with great people,
that's what happened to Twitter.
Yep.
Twitter was not what it was originally, and they were tanking. And they said, well, maybe we can change the way we're doing this. And they went, keek.
Yeah.
And then Twitter just went,
yeah,
and exploded.
Yep.
A lot of companies were like that.
Yeah.
You have to be open to change.
You have to be open to change, and you can't. It's hard, right? Everybody's fearful, but one of the good sayings that I like recently is everything you want in life is an opposite side of fear. So both personally and in business, if you think about why you don't make a decision, why you're nervous to do it, it's because you're fearful, right? You're fearful of money. You're fearful of someone thinking about something. But once you go do it, and I've interviewed actually a lot of people, I do a lot of informational reviews myself. Every person I've spoken to who's made that jump, the last question I say is, well, what's your biggest regret? They always, what do you think they say?
Time,
and they wish they would have done it sooner.
Oh, right.
But like for them, they're like,
Yeah.
You're right. It wasn't.
That's hard for me because I have only lived like this.
Yeah.
I have only lived off of my own whatever I produced.
Yep.
Since I got out of college.
Yeah.
And before. So like, I guess I didn't think about that.
But that's impressive, right? Like, not too many people can do that. I mean,
I
you're in the 2% of society.
I never looked at it like that. I just looked at it like, oh, I can't work for somebody.
Yeah.
My first job was a fully commissioned salesperson for a business machine company. I worked there for 5 years, and I did very well. And then I started going into my own businesses, which I actually had businesses when I was a kid too, because I never saw building somebody else's dream. I just couldn't see doing something so that they could become rich.
Yeah.
I just had a real issue with that.
So where does that come from? Like where does your entrepreneurship and that mindset come from?
So my family were mostly always in their own small businesses. So it wasn't anything told to me.
So you grew up around
it. I was around it, and that's what I knew. Yeah. And I've always been a very independent person who has always marched to his own tune. I'm sure Lori could probably tell you that. And that's just me. And so and I don't think about it. I guess I think about the risks, but I think about how not mediocre that I would feel, but how bored I would feel if I was just doing it for somebody else. Yeah. And the thing about me, here's my craziness. This is how crazy I am. I tend to pick fields that don't exist yet.
Yep.
And I go into fields that are either haven't existed or are in such a beginning phase, and I look at it and go, that looks interesting. And you know what? If I go into that, I'm not going to have any competition.
Yeah.
The problem side of that is people don't understand what you do, so you're not selling anything yet. You're educating first. Yeah. So in this business, I started doing this about actually started 4 years ago, but seriously, more like 3 years ago. Would you say, Lori? About 3 years ago. And
before you actually implemented it.
There was nobody doing this 3 years ago. And it was just, I mean, I know when I told her when I first was going to do it, she was like, "You're doing what?" Right? Because it's an education process. I mean, you fully get it now, but it's an education process. I have to educate people. But once I educate them and I treat them with respect, when it finally starts to come around, people go, "That's the guy."
Yep.
That's the guy. There is nobody else. That's the guy. He knows everything there is to know about it, whether I do or not is true. So
it's good to be at the forefront, right? I mean,
but it's crazy.
Scary.
It's stupid in some ways.
Yeah.
It's like, it's silly. It's like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. Yeah. But so what's been your biggest takeaway? So you think about all the different things you've created over the years and the jumps that you've had in your mind, what still drives you to do it?
I like building things.
Yeah.
I like putting smile on people's face. I like watching the light bulb go on when I've educated somebody and they go, "Oh, 82% of all internet traffic is going to be video in by 2022." What?
Yeah.
Wait. People will watch a live video on Facebook. It says people watch a video 3 times longer than a pre-recorded video. Wow. And then you watch this bulb go on and you see that, and now you got them.
Yeah.
Now you can start showing them applications that meet their needs. Yeah. And then it becomes easier.
Yeah. I mean,
I love watching that light bulb go on. I love making people happy. I love watching them help them build their own successes with what I can do to help them.
Yeah.
And I like building things. I like watching them grow from nothing.
Yeah.
And just absolutely, I mean, I start with these, this is not the first time I've done this, but I start with these these thoughts in my head. And then I go, and I fail more than I've succeeded.
Yep.
The last one I had was accessories for the iPhone. failure because Apple was getting into it already in the phone itself.
Yeah.
I had a piece of software that my company built that was on the App Exchange at Salesforce. We were certified.
Yep.
Failed. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
But when I
But
finally,
you learn from those.
totally.
Yeah.
And then when I hit on something I love, then there's like, I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care. No, I'm going.
Yeah.
So that's what drives me, all those little things.
Yeah.
And I just keep going. And like everybody else, I get scared. And like everybody else, I will wake up in the morning going, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Why am I, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But I just keep going because like once you start getting in too deep,
Yep.
it's like there's no turning around.
Yeah. But it's important for people to remind and know that people feel like that, right? So many people are like, oh no, like I can't be thinking about that, or I can't be scared. Like, you know how many successful executives wake up every day being like, oh my God, when am I going to get this done? And you see them in the New York Times, you see them in the Wall Street Journal, you see them on Facebook, whatever it is, that are super successful. But then you read the stories 20 years later and like what was going through their mind. So you just have to remember, like, we're all the same people, right? I remind my kids every single day, it says, remember, everybody's a heart and a brain and treat them the same.
Right.
Because we all do, right? So then it's about how do you let your brain interact with your thinking to what you end up doing.
You have to let the fear in,
Yeah.
but then you have to push it out
Yep.
and say, I can do this.
Yeah.
And when you fail, you have to be able to go
Yeah. It is what
and
it is.
get up and just start going forward again.
Yep.
You know, and that was some of the examples that were set to me by my family.
Yeah.
You know, my dad was a businessman who failed and got up from it. And my mom was like right there starting a business to help feed the family. And I was, you know, always very independent.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny that just you saying that, you know, because you're also a teacher too, right? You may not think of that in your head, but like what you're doing now is like you're teaching people both either from a content perspective, from an engagement perspective, and you forget like how good teaching makes people feel long term. And then like if you can do it with something that you're passionate around, that's a golden nugget. And the money will always come. I tell people, like,
Yeah.
too many people get caught up. Oh, I need to be making this. You're like, well, no, like to follow your dream and follow things that you're doing. Like, trust me, I was making, I think, $21,000, $23,000 when I was doing the Sail Caribbean thing, maybe $35,000 when I first started Lead Dog. And like, I had no idea that Lead Dog was going to go the path it went, right? But I believed in the people. I liked it. I was passionate about it. I kept doing what felt good for me. I didn't let the outside world tell me what to do. And it's led me to be a very successful business person and obviously help. Now we're running a 1,000-person company globally. So
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
That you've gone that far.
yeah,
You know, and that's part of drive and passion, drive, persistence.
Yeah.
And they all go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So like I'm a kid, I want to like get out, I want to be successful in what I do, make some recommendations.
yeah. So one is I talked about before, network, right? So we all have different relationships between parents, neighbors. I mean, it's even how I ran into Cliff, right? Like I go out there and either meet with people, grab coffees with them. I want to learn about their business. You have to be engaged with people, show them that you care. And if you can start to build a network of 5 people, 10 people, 15 people in different spaces, one, you'll become much smarter to understand why they've become successful or what drives them. And then 2, it'll be like, okay, what are the traits that I want to take from these people to help me in my career? I think is number 1. Number 2 is go out there and experience new things. So go to conferences, go to trade shows. If you love football and that's your passion, doesn't mean you go play football. Like you could go work for a magazine company that covers it. I've always talked to a friend, he loves surfing. I was like, go work for Surf Magazine and be their accountant in Surf Magazine. People get caught up saying, oh, I want to be this, or I want to go work at Nike.
I have to be a football star.
Correct.
You know, it's funny because I do think about that, and we're going to end in a couple of minutes, but I do think about that with the kids who are in esports.
Yep.
Not everybody's going to be a ninja.
Yeah.
Okay? The people like Ninja, they're like a 100th of 1,000th of 1%.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you can't be in the esports world. It doesn't
Fastest growing sport. So we are in esports right now as a company, and more people tune into esports games to watch kids play games than the Super Bowl.
And
It's incredible. The amount of money that's poured into that industry is amazing.
Which means there are going to be a lot of jobs in that
100%.
world, right? Project managers, programmers, developers, UI, UX.
Agencies.
Yep. So you can still be in that business even if you're not going to be the next, you know, ninja as we were talking about.
Yeah, it's about again, like if I was to tell one thing for young kids and just anybody in general, even if you're a 55-year-old person, you're struggling to figure out what to do, think down deep inside what makes you smile when you were 18, when you were 20, when you were 10. What did you like? What drove you as a human being? And then reverse engineer it. It's okay, what am I going to get back into? Because I guarantee you, if you can do that, you will become super successful and you'll love life and people will want to hire you because they're going to feed off you.
Right.
If you're in a job and you're nonchalant, no offense, you're not going to probably get promoted. You're not going to make the ton of money because people are going to see you and you're just doing the job, just do the job.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you being on. Lori, there's no comments or questions tonight, are there?
I have a question.
Go for it.
Oh, 2 questions. Oh, boy.
First one, do you remember the woman who you didn't get the job interview from? Do you remember why she told you why you didn't get the interview, why you didn't get the job?
Yeah, I mean, it just came down to experience in the sports space. So they were in golf, Rolex. They were looking for someone who had a little bit more experience in the space. She liked the personality, she liked the attitude, and she's like, listen, if we were hiring someone that was more of a coordinator level, like you'd be perfect for it, and we could groom you for that space. So I always tell people, like, just because you don't have enough experience, don't oversell yourself and say that you can do it. But if they say that you don't have enough experience, don't take that as defeat. Say, okay, how am I going to go out to market now and get that experience? And then follow with those people.
There are so many things I wanted to do really early on in my live streaming that, man, am I glad now I never did them.
Yeah.
I didn't have the experience or the knowledge that I have now.
Yeah.
But I even then jumped into stuff. I mean, I did it 3 years ago now, major concert.
Yes.
I did a major concert 3 years ago. I had only been live streaming for a year. And is that Shelby? Yeah. Oh my God, I thought it was like a train.
We're like,
And I did a major concert in Manhattan, like
Yep.
a major shoot. I had no clue what I was doing. Thank God. I somehow
Pulled it
was
off?
Yeah, I did.
Nice.
Pulled it off. Yeah, it was
There
in
you
the
go.
largest, it's at the Cathedral of St. John's, and
Yep.
it's the largest Gothic cathedral in the world.
Wow.
And we did a major shoot there.
Yeah.
I knew production already, but I was just really cutting my teeth. But there's so many things that I pitched that thank God I didn't get
Yeah.
those projects. Now I can do it
Yep.
because I have so much behind me.
Yeah,
But I
you
didn't
learn.
have it. But what I do know is I can find people who are better than me,
100%.
who can do it for me.
100%.
So
You always want to revolve yourself around smarter, more educated people. than you
all
are.
the time. Absolutely.
What was
wait,
the second one?
my second question.
Sorry, Lou.
Through all of your journeys throughout your life, who is the one person from you starting your journeys to living all over the world to
Yeah.
being here that has made the biggest impact on you or has told you the biggest, the best advice that you still you walk with today?
Someone he's met or just a mentor?
Somebody you've met.
Someone-
Yeah, like somebody in your journeys, like I met this guy on a mountain someday
Yeah.
and he gave me this and you know, if you could see them again,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Well, I mean, twofold, right? One, my mom always told me, like, and she's been the rock to me of like who I've become as a human being, of just caring for others and good things will come to you. Along the adventures and travels, I'd probably say it's been our current CEO and founder who's built this really successful company that through the thick and thin, and I've seen it, he's been super stressed out, tough times during the recession, like, you know, had to borrow money from his house just to pay for the employees, which I respect, to then selling it for tons of money. And he's always been about carpe diem, right? And his whole belief is, listen, if you get the right people on the bus in the right seats, you will always do good, both in personal life and in work life. And it's a very simple statement, right? Think about it. Get the right people on the bus,
Right.
but put them in the right seats, and you'll do well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely true.
good.
yeah.
Well, Rob, thank you so
Yeah,
much for being
it's
on.
been awesome.
I really wanted you to come on here.
Yeah.
I hope you come back.
Yeah, definitely.
And I hope
Anytime.
you hang around because at 7:30 tonight, we have another episode of that fantastic game. That fantastic show, that game show.
I'm like, oh, Frank, we're doing a game
Game
show.
show,
I
like
got
it.
all
Actually,
excited
we are
for a
doing
second.
kind of a game show in March. We're doing a cook-off in here, a show
Smart.
with hosted by the founder of Babalu.
Okay. Culinary is a hot space right now.
And we're going to be doing, I can tell you more about it, but we're going to be doing a whole, we're going to have cooking here, and it's going to be out of control.
I like it.
So we're going to be getting into that. But anyway, we're going to be having on the hosts, Corey and Mike Winkoff of Beyond the Game. And I hope you hang out for that.
Heard they're good guys.
Will you be able to hang out for that?
I'm not sure. We'll see. I got to find out where the
I can
where
tell
the
you
kids
that
are.
Mike Winkoff will start crying like a baby if you don't hang out here. Because that's what
I'm
he
sure.
is. He's a baby.
Yeah. I like
It's
it.
his son Corey that's really the
He's the star of the show.
totally.
Yeah.
Wish I was young like that again.
Must be
Anyway,
nice.
so next week we have on this awesome guest, Ariel the Urbanist. And Ariel's he's got a pretty big Instagram following. He's got about 50,000 people following him, and he just gives tours of different cities or different places in cities, and he live streams them. And he's got a pretty big following. And actually, I've been on one of his tours a
Yeah.
few weeks ago because we were at a conference, speaking at a conference, same conference together. And, you know, like he walks by a building and go, that's where the Oreos, that's where they started making Oreos in that building.
And he'll live stream it.
Yeah, and like, you know, see this down here in the meat district? This is where the ramrod was, and the meat and the mine shaft. You know,
Smart.
back in the 70s. You
Yeah.
know, and people are like, "Wow, you know, I
Yeah.
never knew that."
Listen, like you said before, streaming nowadays, everybody has their mobile
a
device, right?
niche.
Everything's here. So
Yep.
you can look, you can watch, and you can click and follow things that you're passionate about. And there's enough people
About
putting out
niches.
content nowadays.
Yep.
You just have to be confident enough and just continue to put out content. Some's going to hit, some's going to miss, but it's better than putting out nothing at all.
Absolutely, and you
So-
can do it for it's so easy to do for so little.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so Ari will be on next Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We'll do our annual Thanksgiving video. And we'll see you next week, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, here in lovely downtown East Northport. Frank, you have the credits, right? Is that me?
That
Yes.
was yes.
Yeah.
That was,
Okay, good.
Yes.
It was a grunt.
That's weird.
Okay, we'll
Shelby.
see you next week. Bye.